Hey guys, I'm Saurav, and in this video let's see how to shoot amazing cinematic videos just with the DSLR that you have. So, shooting cinematic videos is a two-way process. The first process is actually shooting the video, and the second process that is also equally important is how you exactly edit that particular video. And in this video tutorial, I will explain both the processes, so sit back and enjoy the video. So, first let's talk about camera settings. Now, if you don't know exactly how to shoot a video in manual mode, then there is a separate in-depth tutorial about it. The link will be in the description and also popping right somewhere here. Now, for the traditional film cinematic look, we are going to set FPS at 24 FPS, right? So 24 FPS is going to give you that cinematic look, and the shutter speed is going to be 1/50th of a second, and aperture and ISO is going to depend on the situation. So that is all about the camera settings. The next thing is the aspect ratio. Now the video you shoot with your DSLR is actually shot at 16:9, but the cinematic films you see are shot at a different aspect ratio. Now by default you can't change the aspect ratio in the DSLRs, and the video you get will be of 16:9. But you don't have to worry, you can later add the black cinematic bars in post. So we are in Premiere Pro, and then we are actually using an adjustment layer. Then actually we use a crop on the adjustment layer, and we give 12.2 on the top and on the bottom to get a very cinematic look. So you can see by using just an adjustment layer and the crop, we are adding a cinematic bars, and that looks much more cinematic right now. The next thing is to shoot in flat. Now when you shoot in movie mode, by default in DSLR, the picture profile is set to standard. Now standard picture profile is great because you get good contrast, you get good saturated colors, and everything looks proper. But the problem is, now since you have very good colors and contrast, you don't have much flexibility to actually change it in post, right? So shooting in flat will give you much less saturated colors, less contrast in highlights and shadows, but at the same time it means when you are in post processing, you're getting very high flexibility to play with. So think of the flat video as a raw file, right? So now many of the DSLRs have an inbuilt flat picture profile. If you don't have an inbuilt flat picture profile, you can always tweak the picture profile and just decrease the saturation and contrast and get a similar look. So with the help of a flat video, you can now tweak the colors and grade it. And that brings us to the next topic, that is color grading. So as I said, the flat videos that you shoot actually lack contrast and colors, and now we are going to bring that in post.
So we are in Premiere Pro. I will drag the sequence and just remove the audio. Now you can use adjustment layer 2 for the demonstration purpose. I'm doing it directly on the video. So in the color panel, you have basic correction on the top and you have creative right below it. So in the creative panel, I'm going to adjust the colors. So I'm going to use a LUT, that is a lookup table. So I think for this particular video, the black eye LUT is really very helpful. It's like presets for your videos, okay? Color presets. Now, depending on the LUT and the video, you can adjust the intensity. So if you think the intensity is too less, you can increase it. If you think the LUT is too strong, you can decrease the intensity. So that's why shooting in flat always helps. You can use LUTs and you can change the colors. For this video, I think maybe the intensity of 75 works for me. Again, it's a personal taste and depends from person to person, but just make sure that by using LUTs, you're not overdoing it so that it looks fake, right? Make sure it looks natural at the same time. Then you can add a bit of faded film so you get that faded look in your videos. So you can do it with the adjustments and also with the curves. There are many ways to color grade, and this is just one way of doing it. You can also tweak the vibrant saturation for the colors. So once I'm done with the basic correction, you can see the creatives, you can see I've changed the colors. Now in basic correction, I will change the exposure. So I will just reduce the highlights a bit and I will just increase the shadows a bit. So basically when I'm color correcting it, when I'm correcting the exposure, I make sure I have my lumetri scopes on so that when I'm changing my whites and blacks, basically the lumetri scopes actually show me if I'm clipping anything or not. So maybe if I clip something, it goes above 100 and it shows me that I'm clipping, so I have to reduce the values. So at the same time, what happens is with adjusting the whites and blacks, I am increasing the contrast, but at the same time I'm making sure that I'm not clipping anything. So I'm getting good contrast but staying within the range. Okay, so it works well. Lumetri scopes really helps a lot. So with the basic correction, I'm just able to bring back that contrast which we lost because we were shooting in the flat video. Then with the curves, I just tend to make a slight S curve. I just tend to increase the highlights part and bring back the shadows part and create that slightly S curve for that contrast look. Okay, it depends, as I said, there are many ways. I just add a bit of vignette at the end with a feather of 100 and just a bit of vignette, and so that the attention is focused at the center, and that's how I color grade my videos.
The next thing is using slow motion in your videos. Now, slow motion looks great. If you don't know how to shoot a slow motion video, again, I have a separate in-depth tutorial about it. So what I generally do is, if I have a particular clip and I want to slow it down, I don't just slow it down. I keep some part of it at a normal speed or at a faster speed, and then after a certain point of time, I slow it down. So here is what I do.
So now we have a video, and by default, if we bring down the bar, it changes the opacity. So we are going to show clip keyframes, time remapping, and speed. So now just by moving the line, we can actually change the speed. So if I bring it up, it will it will speed it up. Okay, so I will make it about 200% so that it speeds up the whole video. And there I want the slow motion to start, so I will just bring it down to 40%, and since I've shot it at 60 fps, it allows me to do so. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually bring a bit of transition from fast motion to slow motion, so that the transition from fast to slow doesn't look very abrupt. Okay, it's a gradual and smooth transition. So that's what I do, and as you can see, we are from fast to slow motion, and now the slow motion looks very, very exciting. Again, I will add a point and I will speed up the video if I feel I want to do that, and then again I will repeat the same process. Again, I will add a bit of transition from slow to fast so that it looks much more smooth. So once I have done it, you can see that the video looks very interesting from fast to slow, again from slow to fast, and you can add this just to make the footage much more interesting.
So with speed ramping and slow motion, you can make your movie just look more interesting, but make sure you don't overdo it. The next thing is the camera movements. Now, when you see a static shot, it doesn't look much interesting to the human eye, right? So you want some kind of movement to make the scene a bit interesting. So you can use camera sliders, you can use glide cam, you can use stabilizers and move the camera. You can also use a tripod with a fluid head. So with a fluid head, you can actually move the camera in the direction you want and get those smooth fluid movements. And adding just a little bit of movement will make the video look much more interesting and pleasing to the human eye, and it won't be as boring as the static shot. So now, if you don't have any camera sliders, if you don't have any gimbal or a tripod when you're shooting, you can also shoot handheld. So what I do when I shoot handheld is I just use a faster frames per second. Like in this example, I use the 60 frames per second option. And then I maintain maximum distance between me and the camera so that the tension in the camera strap is maximum. What that allows me to do is it allows me to move the camera in the direction I want, and at the same time I get stable videos. So now when you shoot a video handheld, it's not going to be perfectly smooth, right? So what I do, I bring the video into Premiere Pro and I use warp stabilizer. So warp stabilizer is an inbuilt effect in Premiere Pro. I use that, I nest a sequence and then I slow it down. That is why I shoot at a higher frames per second, so that I can slow it down and export at 24 frames per second.
So now if you have a static shot at the end, you can still add some movements and make your footage look more interesting in Premiere Pro as well. So now in this example, basically I'm going to add a vertical movement. I'm going to add a position keyframe at the start. I'm going to add a position keyframe at the end also. So when I'm at the end of the video, I'm going to actually adjust my y-axis values, okay? I'm going to make the y-axis values a bit less so that the video moves a bit up. And to compensate for that black bar at the bottom, I'm going to scale my video. So maybe about just about 106 or 107 looks great. And when you're happy with the position and scale, if you go through the video, you will see that we are slightly moving above direction very slowly and in a very gradual manner. Okay, and it looks very smooth. You can also reduce the distance between the keyframes to make the movement a much faster. So you have a lot more flexibility in post as well, right? And not only you can do horizontal and vertical movements, you can also actually zoom in and zoom out. So let's make the scale 100 and add a key point again at the scale at the beginning, and again at the end let's add a keyframe of about 125 again. So what happens is when I go through the video, I get a smooth zoom in movement.
So the last tip is to add some time lapses, hyperlapses, some kind of stop motion videos in your films. So overdoing it will look boring, right? Because it's not a video about time lapse, it's a film. So adding a short time lapse for a few seconds will just create much more interest. So make sure you are creative and make sure you're doing your level best with the gear you have and you shoot great cinematic videos. I hope you liked this video, guys, and if it did, press the like button. If you loved it, press the subscribe button. I will talk to you guys in the next one. Bye.